Podcast World. This is Caribbean Power Lunch, where we feature Black-owned businesses. I am your host, Kevin Valley, and I just got back from Washington, D.C. And while I was there, I had my first radio interview. I want to shout out Adrena, Mimi, Barrington, and the guys at WPFW 89.3 FM, Timba Republic. We went round the Calabash and we spoke about the origin story of Caribbean Power Lunch. We spoke about Caribbean Heritage Month. We spoke about competition in the podcast space and how I look at competition. So have a listen. Let me know what you think. Kevin at CaribbeanPowerLunch.com. This was a nice, free-flowing conversation. You know, it was different for me because I didn't get to have that whole editing control where I could edit off my stumbles and all of that. So this is as raw as I would ever let you hear me. So enjoy. All right. Thanks a lot, Mimi. Podcast World, there you have it. Round the Calabash with Kevin Valley. Me. Subscribe to Caribbean Power Lunch at CaribbeanPowerLunch.com/subscribe. Check us out on Castbox, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And with that, Podcast World, DC, DMV, we are out.
We are now round the Calabash with Adrena, Eiffel, and Barrington Salmon, and Kevin Valley, and I'm sorry, I'm so wrong. Aquila. And Aquila, I'm sorry, are you Aquila Valley too? No. Okay. So Aquila.
Look trouble now.
Aquila, you have your own name and you're allowed to correct me. Please correct me because that was so wrong.
It's okay.
We are around the Calabash with Caribbean Power Lunch. We got t-shirts.
We got swag.
I mean, Adrena, you done stepped us up again.
Well, you know, knowing people in high places.
It is District Mango all the way. That's an inside joke.
So, well, you know, since it's Caribbean Heritage Month, we are pleased to have a Caribbean American full panel today. We even have visitors from the Caribbean, almost just off the plane. What you said you got here when?
I got here on Thursday. I actually flew into New Jersey, and I was supposed to get into DC that night on last week Thursday, but because of weather, they grounded us in Jersey, so I ended up spending essentially weekend there.
Not a bad place.
Yeah. No, it's cool. You know, it's nice and calm. We drove into the city, and it's like I was falling asleep on myself in the car in Jersey. By the time we got to New York, I woke up.
Well, yes, that is New York.
That will do that
the
too.
The largest Caribbean American population is. But DC.
In New York?
In New York, yes. But DC, we have a good, we're in the running.
I love DC. I mean, this is my first time. I was telling Akila, I got here and I just feel the nice vibe of the city, the energy. It's not as strong as New York, but it's easier to take in, you know?
This is true. Well, we're honored that this is a premiere. This is your premiere on the DC radio.
Yeah, this is my premiere. Yeah, this is my premiere on radio as a whole.
Oh gosh, man!
Wow,
Mama, reach!
Look what you done! What you done started again.
Well, so since we're kicking off Caribbean Heritage Month, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of it.
Yes.
So, interestingly enough, of course, we know that Caribbean people have been living and immigrated to the United States since the early 1800s, and even there's been the migration back
since
and forth.
Before.
Yes,
since before. We'll go ahead. We came before Columbus. We know this.
This is true. But we talked about last week, we talked about the migration back and forth.
Exactly.
But in terms of recognizing it as a national designated month, I'm happy to report that former President George W. Bush signed that resolution on June 5th, 2006. So we've been celebrating this officially as a designated month for 13 years now.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we get the whole month.
I love. We get a whole month that has like at least 30 days, right?
Yeah, because I was just about to say, because you got the Black History Month, which is February, you got 29 days.
28 and 29 days only every 4 years.
Yeah, 29 days on
But the thing is that they, the mantra these days is that I'm black 365.
True.
So who cares about a month?
True. But, we in America like to,
Highlight things by
highlight
schedule.
things and make it extra special. At least we don't have Caribbean American, sales.
A week.
Well, we should have sales. We should have sales, though, because I
do
was
they
trying to
have
buy
Black
some
History?
shades yesterday, and,
You could have pulled out your passport and
Like-
said, can I get the 10% Caribbean American
I'm from the
discount?
Caribbean here, like, give me a little discount,
Right.
Yeah, find your street vendor.
Right, that's true.
You're killing me.
He or she better hook you up. Because, of course, that entrepreneurship in the Caribbean is very strong, and in America, Caribbean Americans do it. So that leads me to my first question, Kevin. As a super fan of the Caribbean Power Lunch, everyone really check it out. It's one of the best podcasts ever.
It is.
Tell us, how did you start this?
Wow, that's a big question. All right, so I've always been in business. I work in banking, I work in finance and stuff. And I mean, in my company, the company I work for, and we're going to shout out, KCL Capital Market Brokers Limited. Shout out to my brother, Lisa Omalade, and the whole team there. We focus on like small and medium-sized businesses. So what we do, we take small businesses and help them grow. So, for instance, I don't know. Well, you've been in Trinidad a few times, so you've been to the IMAX, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. All right. So we actually did the initial financing for that couple. A husband and wife team, a black husband and wife team, in 2011, and you see where they are now. Right now, they went from one screen to like 6-7 screens.
Wow.
Just because
IMAX screens?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, IMAX, and then they have that luxury cinema. Then they have upstairs that they have a 4DX cinema where they shake you up and they wet you and everything.
Oh my goodness.
That sounds like way too much fun.
No, well, I haven't been to the 4DXs yet, but I hear it's really exciting. I hear it gets you a little sweaty and everything.
So they're real creative entrepreneurs.
I love it.
No, listen, all entrepreneurs really and truly are creators, I would say, because how entrepreneurship really starts is because you see a gap, you see a problem, and you try to solve it, right? And to solve that problem, you have to tap into your creativity. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, you might borrow from your technical skills, from your education or what have you, but it's that creative thinking that gets you into that problem-solving mode, and then to actually implement and find a way to build a team, to map out your processes or whatever, and actually get going. Because the hardest part is to actually get going.
True, good point.
Most definitely.
When you're talking with the other entrepreneurs across the Caribbean, how do you decide who you're going to talk to?
Oh, okay. So I think about, I try to cater for international listenership as well. So I try not to do people who are too local in who they target. I look for people who I think will speak well, who have something to say, right? And who have an interesting story. Because story is really the centerpiece of everything, right? No matter what. And you know this, Adrina. You're from the Caribbean. Mimi, you're from the Caribbean. You got Caribbean friends. Caribbean people. Ooh.
He's from Jamaica.
He's from Jamaica?
Friends?
We're all friends and family.
Wait. I didn't pick up the accent, bro. I'm sorry.
He's a Jamaican Brit.
Oh,
He was
okay.
born in Britain, but grew up in Jamaica.
All right, so
I love that, Caribbean friends.
I love how you bring that Jamaican accent to the forefront. I love that. So, really and truly, Caribbean people are storytellers from history, right? And I just like to bring that to the forefront. I think stories is the best way to sell anything, to get people, to convince people of anything. It's just the best medium of anything. So whether you're shooting films, you're recording podcasts, you're giving a keynote speech, is really about the stories that you tell.
Excellent. And it really comes across in your podcast. I find that I'm really hooked on the story.
Most definitely. You know how in the past, like in the 80s or whatever, it was all about sex. Sex sells. You say the word sex and everybody's like going to come a-running. Now the word is really story. Story is sexy. Story sells. And everyone's looking for content and everyone's looking to tell their stories. What I really, really adore about your podcast is the fact that you allow your guests to tell their story.
Yeah.
And you're telling us your story.
Yeah.
So we might be following well in your footsteps, you know.
You know, it's funny you say that because I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I don't need to be the person speaking the most. For me, my job is to bring it out to them, to make them feel comfortable, because a lot of times, most of these guys are people who are speaking, who are telling their story or being interviewed for the first time. So, I mean, we sit on the couch, and you'll see the videos, Adrina. We sit on the couch, we might drink a little bit of rum, we try to get that rum sponsorship. But
Just a little bit.
What's that?
Just a little bit of rum.
No, well, a good bit. But enough, you know, to make, I mean, they still have to get home safely afterwards. You know, so it's really about making them comfortable so that they could tell their stories in a way that engages the listeners. So we could have Adrina listening every week.
Every week.
And I appreciate you, Adrina.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate listening. It really keeps me company too.
Can I ask a question? Do you have a lot of competition in Trinidad or in the Caribbean in terms of what you're doing?
No, see, when you say the word competition, right? See, I think if everybody has the same goal, is really and truly, we're all collaborating, you know? So, I mean, yeah, there's another podcast, but it's not really like an entrepreneurship podcast. It's a podcast on, let's say, career development.
Okay.
You know, so this is, and I'll give him a shout out. It's Joel Millington. The name of his podcast is Caribbean Mentors. So he's interviewed a lot of these C-level people throughout businesses. So I'm talking about the CEO of Neil and Massey, which is one of the biggest conglomerates. He's interviewed Anya Yongchi, you know, winner of Project Runway and everything. He's interviewed a lot of headline folks, you know, and really and truly, see, because podcasting is it's so nascent in the Caribbean. It's now up and coming. You know, I get excited when I see new podcasts jumping up. You know, so just the other day I saw this Big Box of Crayons. You know, a podcast on creatives and stuff. Like I'm glad when I see that. You know, and when people reach out to me and say, hey, Kevin, I want to start a podcast. Can you help me? So I'm glad to help. You know, I don't really see it as competition because I mean, you can listen to me, then you can listen to somebody else. You know?
This is true. I'm glad you said.
Still listen to me, please.
Yes. And then still listen to you. Yes. So there's I feel like there's this huge resurgence of radio. And because podcasting is that a bit of listening and storytelling and of course being on the radio goes that way. Adrina and I are filmmakers, long time working in film, and this way of telling the story and doing it live and having this interaction with people that people can actually pick up on through the ears is very, very different style storytelling than making a video about it and then posting it lovingly for everyone to see, because you know you get 20 calls and things go haywire and the story changes instantly right there. How do you deal with that for you as a podcaster in deciding who's going to come on? How do you deal with I have too many people coming on today, or the unexpected,
like
the
The
unexpected
interview didn't go exactly as she thought it was going to go.
Oh well, see, I schedule my interviews myself, you know, and I mean, when I started off, it would have been me reaching out to people. So initially it would have been people I knew in my immediate network, people I know I could have a nice, long, comfortable conversation with. Because truth be told, I was a little bit nervous at first, you know. But as I did more and more, like every interview I did, I got a high. I was like, wow, this is great, you know? And I mean, it'll be no problem for me to stay up and edit that and get it out and sleep for 3 hours. Like that high, that feeling that you did something, you put something out there was just enough to carry me forward. So in terms of scheduling, yeah, I mean, I keep the schedule. I use the Outlook calendar and everything. I decide maybe about 3 guests ahead who I want, what kind of story I want to tell, how I want to focus each season. So the last season had a lot of coaches. I've recently started to embrace the field of coaching. Before that, I was like, coaching, but then I started getting coaching myself. I was like, wow. It's amazing. I get to talk about myself to somebody who will listen for a whole hour. And it's like, and they'll, help me be a better me. I love that. So yeah, that's how I pick the people. But I can't, it wouldn't be me if I didn't ask a question myself, right?
Okay.
So you mentioned you do your radio show and everything, but you don't do any video. Is there a reason that you don't do any video?
This is going to be, this is part of this story. I'm a filmmaker, I'm an educator, and I'm a radio show host, and I'm a wife, and sometimes a journalist, and sometimes a photographer.
And a mother.
And a mother.
Right.
And it's overwhelming to do everything and also turn on the camera on myself, because I hate that.
Oh.
I hate being in front of the camera. I love being behind the camera. I will turn the camera on you with a quickness, and on any one of my subjects, because they have their picture profiles, all of your picture profiles. As a matter of fact, my partner, one of my partners, Talia Grimes, one of our partners, she says I take way too many pictures of her. But that I think that that's the problem that I see with myself, is like, I can't do everything, and I can't be a filmmaker and be on the air at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So, Adrina?
Well, what I've been noticing, though, if we talk about our connections throughout the diaspora, that it seems in the Caribbean that is a trend, and as a preference to have video, like IG Live and Facebook Live is huge, where I think here, at least in DC or the US, we're just getting there. Mm-hmm. Do you notice that in terms of?
Yeah, so the Caribbean people as a whole, they're generally more visual. They're still more visual and less audio. I can't remember what's the big word for that. And so why I do some video? Maybe are you doing video right now? Maybe?
I'm trying to figure it out.
So why I was saying to do videos that you're able to reach those new audiences, because a lot of people in Caribbean be like, so what's a podcast? What's this? I mean, where do I find this on your website? So to bring them onto that platform, they say, wait, no, Kevin, I'm not seeing you. Well, So to bring them into that, you kind of ease them in. So you put your little video and over. And I mean, I used to suck at video. Huh? I just got a little tripod. I got a slightly better phone and everything, and I try to do a lighting in the cabin, but I try to do what I can.
It works. So speaking of also trends, what would you say? And you're from Trinidad. Mm-hmm. What is the most unique about Trinidad and Tobago's creatives?
Oh,
in all of your catalog of interviews, have you found anything?
It's unique as opposed to other creators in the Caribbean?
Yeah, and you can talk about the other islands as well. Because I remember you went to Barbados. You were on location in Barbados. And anywhere else have you been on location?
I did an interview in Toronto.
Oh, that's
right,
good. We like that one, TEDx.
Yeah, it's with Keita Deming, yeah. Difference between Trinidad and Tobago creatives and other Caribbean creatives. I can't say that I could think of any particular differences. I mean, yeah, maybe the Trinidadian creative will have a more varied background in terms of just because of that cultural mix, that racial mix within the country. So maybe from that they are able to borrow from that. But to say in terms of their execution and their bravery, their boldness and their idealism, I wouldn't say is that much different. What I would say, maybe the Jamaican guys, they're a little more aggressive. They're a little more gutsy, but I guess that's just how they are culturally.
So I figured it out. And we're live on the Timba Republic Facebook page.
All right.
Look at that. Right there on the spot.
Right there
Caribbean
on the
creative,
spot. I was
making
trying
it
to be
work on the spot.
I was trying to be such a perfectionist and turning, I have this thing about turning the camera this way, and it's all of a sudden said to me, do not rotate your phone while going live. You can't rotate your phone. I don't like that iPhone.
So tell us, you have any breaking news? What's next? What's
Breaking
the next episodes or season?
Okay, so season 5 may come out, let's say, maybe it's like October or so. I have a big exam in September, so I trying to focus for the next few months. And I'm also working with our holding company, Become Investable. So we'd have done some video interviews to Become Investable with some industry leaders, trying to give people that business financing intelligence and how to optimize their businesses to generate sustainable wealth, to attract investors, So, yeah, we've been busy working on that. We're working on a product with the Become Investable team, working feverishly on that. In terms of Caribbean Power Lunch, I'm interviewing a friend of mine. Today's Wednesday. Yeah, no, today's Tuesday. I'm interviewing a friend of mine on Thursday in Maryland, actually. It's like I cannot go anywhere without doing an interview.
On location in Maryland.
Yeah.
That Caribbean Collaborative. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, man. This is a gentleman from the Caribbean who migrated up here. He got married in Jamaica a while ago, so he has a child up here and everything. And he started a business up here in 2016, doing great work. So I'm looking forward to that interview. Maybe I'll release some teaser just because you asked, Adrina. Just because I have to release some few teasers also.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm not that familiar with the business community in Trinidad. Are you seeing a lot of women?
Oh, yeah.
As entrepreneurs and business people?
Oh, yeah. Oh, listen, I'll tell you. I think more than 50% of the people I interview are women. And just and it's funny. It's funny you asked that because just the other day we had International Women's Day, right? Mm-hmm. And we had a Jamaican podcaster. I'm not putting him on blast, big plug up yourself. But I see him mention that out of the how many interviews he did? Maybe about 30 interviews or so. I see him posting that 6 or 8 of them were women. I was like, word? Because for me, I just did a season of.
He was proud of that, right?
Yeah, 30-some% or less woman. For me, maybe 50-some% more a woman. And to me, it's like it's a secondary thought. I'm just looking for people with good stories to tell. But funny enough, also is that most of the women you bring on the show, they on that whole woman empowerment drive.
Yeah.
It's always a part of their story. It's always a part of their pitch. So I find that very interesting.
It's funny because I'm a journalist and I talk to my colleagues and they'll write dozens of stories and never think I should include a woman.
Really?
Yeah. And so what I do, every time I do a story, if I talk to 4 people, 2 are women.
Right.
If I talk to 12 people, 6 are women. And people are like, oh my God. And I'm like, why is that so strange?
But is that intentional? Is that something?
It's intentional. Okay. Because, I understand that the weird thing for me is that you have black people, black men, who will complain about the man keeping his boot in your neck. Wow. But they won't give women an opportunity. Or they don't see the need to give women an opportunity. So it is intentional because for me, they are 50% of who we are and women are not getting as much exposure as they need to. So that's my job.
Hey, man. Listen to Caribbean Power Lunch, bro.
Yeah, I am. I listened to the one with the TEDx guy and I was like, damn, I like that.
Yeah.
But I'll listen to more.
Yeah, man, listen to more. They have a lot of women for you to listen to.
All right.
And since he's got to go home with a woman, he'll be all right. Hey. But you were actually, no, I definitely got to give you credit because I was always surprised when he would call me and ask me for commentary. And I was like, that's really nice that he called and asked me for commentary because, haven't really been featured in articles and stuff like that before. I have, but not in that way on a continuous and constant basis. And now I get that far more than I have in the past. And for me, the entrepreneurship of women is something I grew up with. And I believe that in Trinidad, just like the Adrena, when you took me to the thing from the embassy,
We had an International Women's Day event put on by the Trinidad Embassy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, shout out Trinidad Embassy.
All right.
That was a really powerful introduction to the female entrepreneurs in Trinidad
And here.
and here. This back and forth conversation that really made a whole lot of sense about things like the maternal survival rate and the need for medical attention that actually listens. Type of thing, because it's a crisis.
Read my story next week.
I know.
This week.
It's a crisis in this country. I don't know about in Trinidad and other places, but I do know that it's a crisis. Maternal health and even reproductive health here in the United States. You could end up in the hospital for something reproductive and not leave that hospital.
Well, the thing they've been saying for a while that a child born in Havana stands a better chance of making it to age 5 than a child born in Harlem.
Jesus.
That's how bad it is.
Are you serious?
Yeah, the United States has the worst maternal mortality rate in the world, they say. So, and you're in.
Frida's just like, no, I'm not on the show.
She's being an observer today.
Yeah, so it's an issue. It's an issue, and now, legislatively and a bunch of other groups, women's groups and individuals are beginning to force this country and the lawmakers to focus on it.
Yep. Most definitely.
That's crazy.
Victor, shall we go to some music to give us a little moment to see where else we want to take this conversation? This power lunch.
Yes, Caribbean Power Lunch.
Caribbean Power Lunch arrives at Timba Republic. And we are back with Kevin Valley, Adrena Eiffel, Barrington Salmon, Akila, and me.
Yay.
Welcome. Hey.
What up? Right.
So we were talking with Kevin, and you were starting to tell us about how Caribbean Power Lunch podcast started. Mm-hmm. Please continue.
Right. So I was telling you I was working in the kind of SME space, the small and medium sized enterprises, right? And the year was 2017. This was the wake up call to me. Anthony Bourdain, from Parts Unknown, he did a show in Trinidad, and he was brought down to film his experiences here. Right? Anybody who doesn't know Anthony Bourdain, he was a world class chef. He would travel around the world, capturing his experiences around there, talking about the country's culture, their food, of course, and documented it in a nice 45-minute format. So he came to Trinidad and Tobago to do the same. And, Trinidad and Tobago has different racial classes and everything. So you have the blacks, the Indians, the Syrians, the Chinese, everybody, right? It's a nice big melting pot. Like, it's the definition of melting pot. Okay. So he was with the Syrian family. And now the Syrian family, they were able to build an empire, a wealth-generating empire, just from like the three generations ago, when one man came down here with a bolt of cloth just to sell door to door. And from there, just business after business. And so they built an entire conglomerate, right? So they've become like the wealthiest family, the wealthiest class in Trinidad and Tobago. So they were on their yacht, just entertaining Mr. Bourdain and everything. And they were telling him, hey, we are less than 1% of the population, and we control so much of the wealth. And when that happened, everybody took to Facebook, they took to social media, and they're so upset, they're so pissed. And to me, I'm like, why are you mad? It's true. They didn't lie. I mean, it's unfortunate that footage is what made it to the screen. I mean, I understand why, just for the sake of controversy and everything. Right? And I wasn't mad. I mean, I used to work for the Syrian family and everything in Bangkok before I started working with my brother and my sister and team. And I got that appreciation for how their business run. right? And what I also noticed is that, okay, so while they're the wealthiest family, right? So I remember one of them, they had their Range Rover parked downstairs and everything, and they were actually raising a raffle. They were looking for donations for was it a Syrian Lebanese fund, right? So I'm like, but you guys have all this money. What are you raising? Like, what are you raising money to do? Are you looking to buy? What are you trying to do? You're trying to buy a boat, another boat? Like, what is it? But the thing was that there was no shame. There's no, like, there was like, hey, yeah, we're raising money for this. Hey, buy a ticket, $20. And to me, that was really interesting to me. And I was like, all right, when you look at Trinidad and Tobago in particular, I'm just talking about Trinidad and Tobago for now, right? So we're about 45% black, 45% East Indian. The rest is mix of Chinese and what else have you, right? The East Indian community, they're very close. Like they culturally, they support each other. It's ingrained in them. When you look at the Syrians and the whites, of course, you know, and I'm grouping the Syrians and the whites because it's pretty similar. You know, their children know they're okay. The children are born okay. When you look at the black community, it's a kind of individualistic kind of vibe. It's me for me, you know. I'm not like those other blacks doing that or causing trouble across there. You know, I'm here, I'm middle class, I'm studying, I'm progressing myself. But really, actually, that's part of us too. Mm-hmm. You know, and so to me, it's like a culmination of all of these things. Like, wait, no, why isn't anybody celebrating black achievement, right? I mean, and this is not to say like, hey, I have a problem with anybody else, you know? Of course, I mean, you grew up in Trinidad, you're friends with everybody, right? But why isn't anybody highlighting what is happening here? Mm-hmm. So I said, hey, well, let me try this. Let me conceptualize this. And at first, I was thinking, all right, let me do it as a blog. Let me do it in written format. Mm-hmm. But then I read a story I read an interview on a business I actually ended up interviewing. I was like, no way I'm going to want to write this every week. No way I want to read this every week. All right? I'm done with that. All right. And shout out to my cousin, another podcaster. My cousin and his friends had a podcast called Caribbean Rum Club. You know, and you know I like that, right? Adrina, you know I like that.
Yeah. You know, we all like that.
Right? You know, it was more of a chat cast, you know, where there's a kind of unstructured kind of chat rather than a hardcore focused interview. But it was fun. The guests who come, they drink a different rum, they talk about the different rum and everything, and they're having a good time. It was like, hey. Hey, you know, how about I start a podcast too? Mm-hmm. You know, so I call my friends and say, I want to start this podcast. And when I started telling people, hey, I want to start a podcast featuring black-owned businesses, if you say it in public, they'll look around and say, black businesses?
Yeah. I love where you are with that, because it's far more prevalent than you think it would be. Here in the United States, black Trinidadians, black West Indians on a whole, they always have that entrepreneurial spirit going on. My mother used to buy clothes here, and because my father worked for Eastern, she was like, I have my flight ready. I could pick up my road and go and sell these clothes in Venezuela, in Trinidad, in Puerto Rico, in wherever it was that she was coming, because she was coming with clothes from foreign.
Yeah.
And I mean, directly, like she would go into the garment district in Miami and buy a whole set of clothes in a bunch of different sizes and come back, suitcase empty, sometimes without the suitcase, because the people like the suitcase too, and they buy the suitcase from her.
Oh, shucks.
So, you know, that's what I grew up, that's what I grew up with. Okay. You know, there was an entrepreneur born. You Caribbean, you come here from the Wayan family to I don't know, to Adrina Eiffel and Mimi Machado Luces and Barrington Salmon. We're all business owners, and we're all have this Caribbean base. And what is so weird is to hear that the black entrepreneurs are not celebrated like you, because to us, your show is normal. This is great. Yay. Mm-hmm. Finally, somebody's doing this about this. But to have you say that people in Trinidad turn around and look at you strangely about it is very foreign to me.
But one of the things, sorry.
No, I just wanted to add one other thing. So the morning I launched, I was a little apprehensive. But you know, the first person to share the podcast, the first person to stop, well, when the first people to stop me in the road and say, hey, Kevin, well, I like that. One of the first people to email me and reach out to say, hey, Kevin, I listened to your podcast, I really like it. Can you give me some advice and stuff? All three of these were not black people. You know?
Nice.
I would add to that by saying that it's interesting to me to see, to listen to certain black people. It's almost like they were apologetic about who they are, and it's like shh, don't talk too loud type of deal. And I did a story at least 4 years ago now, and I spoke to an Akan priest, and she said the biggest problem that she sees with black people here in particular is that we live in this sense of fear. Afraid of offending certain people, afraid of being too outspoken, afraid of saying things that might block them from getting the opportunity to advance and stuff. So maybe that's the same thing in Trinidad. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a worldwide thing. You know, people want to kind of calm down their blackness.
Yeah.
You know,
but I guess it goes back to the unapologetically black and also the hashtag Black Excellence. That it is inherently inclusive.
Yeah.
And not to, be separatist, but it is to celebrate, yet also, join in or welcome or be part of.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of times when you say that you're unapologetically black, they think it's anti-white or anti-something. So those of us who live in this sphere have to constantly reassure certain people.
Yeah, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier, where competition. People keep thinking competition, zero-sum game. But really and truly, we could all lift each other up. We could all help each other advance. Because if you just have a goal, a shared goal of progress, everybody can help each other, and there'd be a bigger pie for everybody to get a piece of.
Yeah, but when I ask a question about competition, it's like, for me, if you're in a particular business environment, competition is good.
Yeah.
Because
and that's basically what he answered. I think.
And I love that you don't have no problem naming the names of people who are also doing it, because you have certain people who would be like, well, me not call nobody else's name, I just want it for myself type of deal. Yeah. So I do applaud you for that, because we have got to get rid of this idea of zero sum and stop thinking that the pie is only so big, and there's more than enough for all of us.
And I'll tell you, like those people who think that it's just about them winning, they may win this year, but they'll lose in life.
Yeah.
So my last question for you is, who is your next dream guest? Who's your
dream guest?
Yes.
My
your wish list, your dinner party wish list. Who would that be?
See,
your lunch list.
My favorite
Lunch
guy right now
wish list.
is Robert Smith. You guys familiar with Robert Smith?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you must be familiar with him now.
I know somebody who is this close. You are 6 degrees of separation. Warren Shad, you're getting a phone call this afternoon.
Yes. We're going to talk, because I would love.
Caribbean Collaborative's happening right here, right now.
Right here, right now. Carrie Festa, here we come.
Yes.
It would be my dream to sit down across the room for Robert Smith and pick his brain. Like, so even before he gave those serious amounts, all that money. But when I saw him do that, I looked at it, I was like, wow, if one day I could do that for somebody, like, I win in life.
Say when.
Sorry?
Don't say if, say when.
Amen, bro.
Thoughts are things, bruh.
Thoughts are things.
All right.
Because you will do this. That you will do, because as soon as I saw it, I said, oh, you know what? I'm doing the same thing immediately, because that's the one thing that we lack.
Yeah.
Is that's the only thing that we're lacking in. We're not lacking in talent. We're not lacking in knowledge. We're not lacking in this rich, beautiful, wonderful history that we have. We're not lacking in any of those things. The only thing that happens that can stop us is we might be lacking in opportunities. And that's what that man did for those those graduates from Morehouse, which
The
was
irony,
amazing.
That was phenomenal.
the irony is that it's 400 students, $40 million debt. Mm-hmm. That's what blew my mind.
Go on.
I know, because
Yeah.
what is that means that each of them have at least, on an average, how much?
A lot.
$100,000, a couple $100,000.
Yeah, a couple $100,000.
And listen, he's going to get that money back, you know.
Oh, you
Oh, yeah.
know it.
He's going to
Yeah,
get that
really
money
got it
back.
But even
Tenfold.
more, most importantly, having them not only have the debt wiped out, but understanding how to be fiscally responsible going forward.
Thank you.
And
That
paying it
is
forward.
what I'm hoping the most
And
for.
paying it forward.
And paying it forward. It's exactly right. When we are faced with the things that we are faced with in this country as Black people, on a continuous and constant basis, since the imposter has been living in the White House, there has been this attack on my income that is everything gone up. I can't buy just grapes. I mean, really, just grapes. Grapes cost like $6.99 a pound.
He came for your grapes.
I saw
huh?
70.
He came for my grapes,
$7.99.
Papa.
Yeah, because
I mean,
all the
I'm
people
not mad.
that used to pick fruits and vegetables, they're not picking it anymore, and Americans aren't picking it. So prices of fruits and vegetables have gone up 40%. So 40% since we started this thing on the southern border.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And your vegetables are becoming far more GMO vegetables than they are real vegetables. And your hospital prices and your whatever everything costs more. Even utilities cost more. My electric bill is at least 40% more than it used to be. 3 years ago. Yeah, quite honestly. And 3 years ago, it was ridiculous.
And they say it's our fault
Why they say it's your fault?
because they say you use too much electricity. That's what they say. They have a piece of paper that say you are using 80% more electricity than anybody else in your neighborhood.
Oh, snap.
They tell us that all the time.
Okay,
No,
well, time
and
to
it's
go
not
green.
80%. It's 280%
We tried.
more.
Yeah.
The other day, I just got like a thing from the electric company saying you are using 214% more than the rest similar homes in your neighborhood. Okay, thank
Wow.
you.
What are you doing?
Nothing different. Nothing different. It's really amazing. I feel singled out here, Pepco. Y'all better leave me alone.
That's profound.
That's okay. I'm gonna be all right.
So, Barrington, I mean,
Yes,
I don't
sir.
know if you have time for this question, but during the break, you were saying that you had a Frederick Street story
Yes.
that you wanted to share with us.
I went to Trinidad when I was 17. We have school challenge, which is like a Jeopardy type competition among high schools. We won in 75. We spent a month in Trinidad. We lived at St. Augustine campus. And someone said, you need to go to Frederick Street, man. So I went to Frederick Street. And I almost never left. Because I'm walking, I'm like, oh my God, look at her. I was asking women what they were. Because there were so many different contrasts. I mean, I was like, I lost my mind.
Oh, my God.
So I spent about 3/4 of the time I was in Trinidad on Frederick Street. So I have very fond memories.
All right. That's not how I expected the story to go, but all right.
Live radio. There it is.
Live radio, but that's what you get from Barrington. Where are the girls at?
And the good thing is they didn't have to beat me or do a 7-second delay. So we good.
I'm proud of you, puppy. I'm proud of you. So, why are you here?
Oh, well, it's my first time visiting friends, family. My niece, I have to big up my niece. My niece, Kyra, she's actually getting a 30 under 30 award.
Congratulations.
Wow, congratulations. Fantastic.
Yes, Kyra Valley, I'm very proud of you. You know. So yeah, just me and having a good time. Liming with tequila.
2 seconds.
Okay.
So thank you, Kevin Valley. I want to invite you back whenever you...
All right. Thanks a lot, Mimi. Podcast world, there you have it. Round the Calabash with Kevin Valley. Me. Subscribe to Caribbean Power Lunch at caribbeanpowerlunch.com/subscribe. Check us out on Castbox, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And with that, Podcast World, DC, DMV, we are out. All right. Thanks a lot, Mimi. Podcast world, there you have it. Round the Calabash with Kevin Valley. Me. Subscribe to Caribbean Power Lunch at caribbeanpowerlunch.com/subscribe. Check us out on Castbox, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And with that, Podcast World, DC, DMV, we are out.